also going to be talking to Leanne McAdoo and John Bound, who are reporting from the epicenter of the 6.1 earthquake that hit. And even mainline analysts are saying is a harbinger of much larger earthquakes. And we have top regulators saying that there are many reactors in Southern and Northern California that if they're hit by a 7.0 or more, will probably melt down and explode. So we're going to be talking to folks on the street to see if they're concerned about that, because why build reactors on a fault line and in a tsunami zone? Why build reactors on one of the biggest and most unstable fault lines in the world out in California? Not just the San Andreas fault line, but others. We're going to be looking at that today. Also, we're going to be looking at the latest on Islamic State. Now we're hearing they got some type of Stinger missiles from Syria. Not from Benghazi, not from our traitorous government. And that Obama wants to bomb Syria to protect the world from ISIS directly out of 1984. We've always been at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with East Asia. We've never been at war with Eurasia. War is peace. That's a quote from a radio broadcast in 1984, where mid-sentence, we've got to attack Assad, he's evil, he's horrible, we've got to bomb Syria to protect Assad, he's wonderful. Putin is right, on and on and on. It is total manipulation. I want to break that down. Also, Bill Gates' wife and he donate $1 million to just one gun control initiative in Washington State. They're doing this all over the country, but this is in the Associated Press, so I thought I'd point out what Warren Buffett and people are up to. Warren Buffett, speaking of that, is helping grease the skids and financing moving Burger King ownership and Burger King, I guess you'd say where it's based, to Canada. And that's the type of thing that upsets the public. Warren Buffett, that's all he does. He's the guy with George Soros that financed the killing of the Keystone Pipeline so that Canadian oil would not be brought down through pipelines to the United States to lower our prices, but that it would be shipped by train, which he makes money off of with Soros, to Canada's west coast, loaded on super tankers and taken to Japan and China. So how does Warren Buffett make money? By controlling government regulators, shutting down his competition. How does General Electric make money? They go out and have federal regulators shut down the power plants they don't own. What happens then? They can up capacity and charge you more because there's not, what did John D. Rockefeller I call it? A sin. There's no sin. There's no heresy. There's no heretics here in the New World Order. Competition is a sin. Then they blame the collapsing system on capitalism. When what did George Orwell, who was MI6, well, OSS, what did he call it? What did he call the system we're under? He had a name. He had a name for it. And we're going to be going over that coming up today.
Celebrate the spirit of freedom and liberty upon which our nation was founded at InfoWarsShop.com. Molon Lave is ancient Greek for come and take it. This popular design combines both classic Greek Spartan imagery with modern M16 assault rifles. Now available in women's tees and proudly made in the USA. And now you can protect yourself from corrupt cops with the InfoWars dash cam. It's your car's black box that records all that the driver sees and hears. And introducing the Block It Pocket. It renders your phone undetectable while protecting your private data and your health. Or take back your privacy and protect your personal information by getting your very own Detractor cell phone pouch. So get incredibly high-quality, freedom-based products and help fund the revolution at InfoWarsShop.com.
We have a lot of news, obviously, to cover today. from new anti-gun initiatives here in the United States to the latest migration of corporations from the United States, with Burger King leaving, working with Warren Buffett to transfer itself to Canada. We have the feds announcing you will not be allowed to board an airplane by 2016 without a national ID card. That dovetails with the illegals allowed to fly without IDs. We're going to be breaking it all down here today. But first off, if you just tuned in, we introed the transmission with a movie trailer for 1984, the 1950s version, based on the 1948 book by Eric Blair, pen name George Orwell. He came from an elite technocratic science family, was in British intelligence and then in propaganda at the BBC during World War II. And the book itself is a decoding by an inner party member of exactly the Ingsoc or Fabian socialist mindset for the world. And Orwell, before he died, about a year after publishing the book, wrote essays that you can pull up online or buy in different volumes, where he pointed out that the book is what he believed the world would end up looking like. You can then also hear a famous speech he gave shortly before his death in 1962 in Berkeley by Aldous Huxley, who wrote Brave New World, describing the fact that he and Orwell debated which future would become reality. And Huxley said that it would be his future of the technotronic, genetically engineered, drugged population. But you have to understand, when you read Brave New World, written in 1932, and you think, man, a lot of this has come true. Or when you read 1984 with black helicopters flying around looking through your windows and microphones hidden in your walls and on street corners inside lampposts, you have to understand, both men worked in the highest levels of global government. Both men were Fabian socialists in the inner halls of the elite. Huxley's brother, Julian, ran the UN's UNESCO program as Director General. And so when you read those, there's a reason you see so many movies and so many other books basically based on that template, because you're reading a parable or a gestalt, a revelation of the method of what is going to be done to you. Now, Orwell said he was against it. Huxley would say, I'm against it if you're good enough to stop it. And then he laughed at the graduate students, the PhD students, the people going for their PhDs. You can go hear the whole hour-long speech at Berkeley, and basically said, I don't think you're smart enough to do anything about this. You'll probably just go along with it. So they have this weird rule where they've got to tell you what they're doing to you before they do it. Just like in metaphysical laws, in the allegory of the vampire, which is really the allegory of the sociopath, the allegory of the psychopath, the allegory of the borderline personality disorder, and that whole constellation of anti-human humans. They've got a, hey, I'm your next door neighbor. Would you like to invite me in for tea? Yeah, come on in. They've got to tell you what they're going to do. That's why there's hundreds of movies and hundreds of books and more than 10 TV shows the last decade where the end of humans, the world without us, book on tape. How beautiful, how wonderful. There's too many of us. I mean, who can deny the earth would be better off without all these people? Getting us to accept this Brave News /1984 /THX1138 /Hunger Game. When you read the UN Biological Diversity Assessment, the full document, I have screenshots of it in my 19 '96 TV show, but also in the film Endgame, 2001, where, I mean, I zoom in on it, on the document. I show it to you where they say, we may just use war to exterminate most of the people or a bioweapon, or we may have like a Logan's Run type deal where you have a lottery for who gets killed, or we may just go like with the Aztecs and have ritualized sacrifice cities. That's probably the best model with these big execution games like the Romans had. When you read the biological diversity assessment and what they propose for the new culture, it's Hunger Games. Districts, and only certain districts are allowed to produce certain goods, so the globalists control all the districts, and all the districts need each other, so that we then need the elite, because they are the only ones that know how to run the interlocking districts. You see that in the film with James Caan from the mid-1970s, Rollerball, where each district is run by a main city. And one city is energy, one is technology, one is military. That's globalism. That's the modern mercantilism system, where they would not let things like the colonies in 1770 or so produce any finished goods. That all the raw goods had to be sent back to London, England, where they were then finished so that they had dominance and control over the world. Of course, you don't let people have their own factories. So that's the system that we're going under. And the reason I opened the broadcast today with 1984 is because if you look at what's happening in the news, just a year ago, in fact, less than a year ago, last summer, at the end of summer and into September and into October, they were on the news saying we've got to attack Syria right now, or they're going to attack the United States or Israel, when Syria was doing nothing. And we've got to take the government out. And then now, a year later, we're being told we've got to take out and have bombings inside Syria because Assad and Putin were right about ISIS being bad. We've got to bomb them. And then we're being told, oh, my gosh, ISIS broke into Syrian military bases. They have IMPAD Stinger missiles. No, they got those from the West. But now everyone's going to ask, why did the al-Qaeda people, that's who they are, have the Stingers? Oh, they got them from Assad. See, we've got to go in and bomb these bases because al-Qaeda's in them. This is how dumb they think you are. Here are the headlines. Islamic State might have taken advanced IMPADs from Syrian airfield. That's in the Associated Press. ISIS demands $6.6 million ransom for 26-year-old American woman. Oh, we've got to do something. Louis Gohmert warns of terrorist threat along Texas-Mexico border. U.S. forces move into Syria. Obama paves ways for airstrikes, sending in surveillance jets, despite Assad warning that any attack will be seen as aggression. Oh, yeah, they'll bomb Assad forces who are fighting ISIS because they know the public is so, not even dumbed down, but just so accustomed to being lied to. With this little quote: we've always been at war with Eurasia. We've always been at war with East Asia. We've never been at war in Eurasia. And that's from 1984, as Winston is listening to a radio broadcast in his kitchen, and they change midstream just to train the public to live in fantasy land. What does Obama say? 2 + 2 = 5. That's taught in school. Perpetual war. In 1984, there is a perpetual war among Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia. The superstates, which emerged from the atomic global war, the book, the theory and practice of oligarchical collectivism by Emmanuel Goldstein, which is really what 1984 is. It is the book explaining oligarchical collectivism. And Orwell's telling you that in the book. Explains that each state is so strong it cannot be defeated, even with the combined forces of the two superstates, despite changing alliances. To hide such contradictions, history is rewritten to explain that the new alliance always has been so, and that populaces are accustomed to doublethink and accept it. So they practice lies openly, training you. The war is not fought in Oceania, Eurasia, or East Asia territory, but in the Arctic waste and other disputed zones, just like we fight the Middle East. The sea and land in North Africa and Australia. At the start, Oceania and East Asia are allies combating Eurasia in Northern Africa and the Malabar coast. That alliance ends and Oceania, allied with Eurasia, fights East Asia, a change which occurred during the Hate Week, dedicated to creating patriotic fervor for the party's perpetual war. The public are blind to the change. In mid-sentence, an orator changes the name of the enemy from Eurasia to East Asia without pause. We've always been at war with East Asia. Here's the headlines up on drudgereport.com. That's where I'm going next. Greasy. Burger King to quit USA over taxes. Buffett to finance the move. And the $12 or $11 million purchase of the Canadian company they're buying. U.S. tax rate over 40% versus Canada's 26%. That's right. Hatch, the senator, is calling for an overall. Canadians are squeamish over takeover. Well, it's going home. Burger King's always been a Britishly held company. I'm not against the British. I'm not an Anglophile either. But the Queen of England divested 5 years ago in her majority ownership of it. So the pun is really true that it is a royal company. Just like Dutch Royal Shell and BP are both majority owned by the Queen of England. The other owner is then her cousin, Queen Beatrix. I'm not kidding. You can't make this stuff up. But their state money is a state secret. And, of course, they're tax exempt. You know who else is tax exempt, of course? That's Warren Buffett. Most of his companies are already tax exempt. That's why he's the biggest lobbyist in the U.S. on record, underwriting this week on ABC News and other programs on CNN. I see news articles all the time and read the bottom, and it's financed by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that he heads up and that he's given about $40 billion to, tax-free. So he can then leverage out all the other businesses. He only gives the profit, ladies and gentlemen, into those companies and then uses it to be able to take over other companies. So continuing, these are not the altruistic people that they claim they are. You always read on elitist bios that they are, what's the term you use for somebody that gives money as their profession? Yes, a philanthropic philanthropist. I was having one of those brain flatulations, as they call it. Here's just an example today. They've been doing this since the 80s. Most of the IRS criminal investigators go after blue collar. You can look that up. There are almost no white-collar investigators. The few that are there are used politically to target libertarians and conservatives and family-held companies that aren't globalist. You merge with a globalist company. You play ball with them, you get left alone. Your company gets bought out by a big globalist company. That's one of the fringe benefits. You still get to head it up. You still get your paycheck. You lay off most of your employees, and then you don't have to pay taxes anymore. You're just left alone. That's why it's come out in the news that over half of Congress doesn't pay taxes or is a decade or more behind. See, that's 1984, folks, where Warren Buffett is constantly hyping raising taxes on, quote, rich people. He means people making $125,000 a year or more. That's the middle class, the upper middle class for most people. That's the folks that actually keep the economy going. That group is dwindling. Warren Buffett is in a jihad, or I guess you could use the term crusade, an all-out war on the middle class. And he gives money, hundreds of millions to abortion every decade, hundreds of millions to gun control. Do you know who the biggest financiers, because I read who underwrites the Violence Policy Center, Handgun Control Incorporated, and the others? You know who finances Battleground Texas to turn it blue and take the guns? Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, but you never hear the big national talk show host talking about them. Because let me tell you, you don't mess with the big kingpins. I mean, here's a KOMO News, AP article. Bill Gates and his wife donate $1 million for a total of $6 million in Initiative 594 in Washington State to ban the private transference of guns. Cannot give your son or daughter a gun, shuts down gun shows. Isn't that just cupcake sweet? Oh, neighbor calls cops on boy's lemonade stand. Police come, and well, you know what happened. I just thought I see those articles every day or two. I saw an article where kids were fighting in their front yard with oars, having a fake sword fight. An armored vehicle came. But foreign bankers are tax exempt, looting the country with banker bailouts. You're not going to hear a word, because here's Reuters. They're too busy going after the Tea Party right now. IRS enforcement agent numbers could drop to lowest levels since the 70s. Oh, guess what? All the other government budgets are swelling. They're going to cut white-collar fraud and NASDAQ and stock market investigators. That's right. They're getting rid of their high-level criminal investigations unit. So there you go. They're cutting billions of dollars from that. Just thought I'd mention that. See how the world really works, folks? Alex Jones here for Infowars.com. We're going to be intensifying our efforts to awaken free humanity to the scourge of the globalist in the month of July. And starting this July 4th, we are going to slash prices in a celebration of true Americana, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence on all of the Made in America products that you will find at madein1776.com or InfoWarsStore.com. We're talking about Made in America belt buckles in brass and nickeled brass that state it loud and proud. Molon Labe. That's why we have the best-selling Made in America men's and women's Molon Labe Infowars.com shirts. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a win-win. You vote with your dollars. You support the most hardcore organization out there for promoting true ideas of libertarianism, constitutionalism, basic human empowerment. But more importantly, you get T-shirts and belt buckles so you can meet like-minded people. So you have a conversation starter with friends and family and coworkers. We are reaching out to each other. And you also throw it in the face of the anti-gunners and the rest of the parasites out there that you're a free man and woman, and that you're not going to be a slave, that you're not going to be intimidated to shut up by their tyranny that they call political correctness. That's why in the month of July, we have got giant specials on everything at madein1776.com. But to expand the InfoWar, we're offering the biggest special in the history, 13 years of PrisonPlanet.tv, our multimedia platform. We're offering the equivalent of more than 5 months free right now when you get a membership at PrisonPlanet.tv, and you get 11 memberships that can be used with the same username and passcode so you can share it with friends and family. Now is the time to fund the war bonds. Now is the time to fund the InfoWar. Now is the time to get aggressive. Now is the time to double down. Now is the time to realize you are the people that made the InfoWar so successful and one of the leading lights worldwide against tyranny. You don't stand behind us, you stand right beside us, and I salute all of you on this July 4th, 2014, and going forward in the month of July and onward. This is about freedom worldwide and that desire for human dignity and self-determination that beats in the human breast. We are brothers and sisters together in the true spirit of liberty and the animating contest of liberty. And so I quote in closing the great Thomas Jefferson that I have sworn on the altar of God resistance against every form of tyranny. And never forget, if you are watching or listening to this transmission, you are the resistance.